Jack Mason stood in line, squinting against the harsh glare of the alien sun, its unfamiliar light casting long, bizarre shadows on the ground. Around him stood creatures of various shapes and sizes, their forms silhouetted against the blazing horizon. He was clearly the odd one out, a human among an assembly of the galaxy's most hardened species, each chosen for their survival prowess. "Name?" grunted a voice to his right. The instructor was an imposing figure, his chitinous skin gleaming under the sun. "Private Jack Mason, representing Earth," Jack replied, his voice steady despite the uncertainty churning inside him. "Earth?" The instructor flicked through his datapad with a clawed appendage. "Ah, Deathworlder. Rare. Expected less, ... FR agility." Jack bristled at the comment but kept his face impassive. He'd been called many things in his military career, but fragile was not one of them. Next to him, a massive Grolnathian snorted, a sound like grinding rocks. "You look too soft for a Deathworlder. This will be fun to watch." Jack turned to meet the creature's gaze, noting the multiple eyes that seemed to twirl independently. "We'll see who's watching whom," he retorted. The line moved, and they were ushered into a massive arena that served as the briefing room. Rows of seats were filled with participants, all murmuring in various dialects. Jack found a spot next to another human, a rarity in this setup. "Corporal Liam Gray," the man introduced himself, offering a hand. "Didn't expect to see another human here." "Jack Mason. Neither did I," Jack replied, shaking his hand. "Know what this is all about?" Liam shrugged. "Survive, prove you're the best, and don't die. Standard stuff, I guess." Their conversation was cut short as the center platform lit up, and an instructor floated to the center. The being was slender, almost ethereal, with a transparent membrane showing a glowing internal structure. "Welcome, participants," the instructor's voice echoed, translated instantly by their earpieces. "You are here because you are considered the elite of your respective worlds. This course will test your survival skills in ways you can't imagine. Only one rule applies: survive." A holographic display flickered to life above them, showing a map dotted with various terrains: mountains, rivers, forests, deserts, and what looked like volcanic fields. "You will each start at different points on this map," the instructor continued. "Your first objective is to reach the beacon located in the center. How you get there, and how you survive, is entirely up to you." The room buzzed with the tension and excitement of the challenge. Mason leaned over to Liam. "Looks like we'll need to rely on each other, at least until we get to that beacon." Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on the hologram. "I've got your back if you got mine. No sense in making this harder than it has to be." As the briefing concluded, participants began to disperse, heading towards the equipment bay to gear up for the first phase of their survival test. Jack and Liam walked side by side, each lost in thought about the upcoming challenges. "Ever think you'd be doing something like this?" Jack asked, breaking the silence. Liam chuckled. "Can't say I did. But then again, life has a funny way of throwing you into the deep end." "Yeah," Jack agreed, a determined glint in his eye. "Let's just make sure we swim, not sink." With that, they stepped into the equipment bay, ready to face whatever the alien course threw at them. They were determined to prove that humanity could hold its own, even in the galaxy's most extreme survival classroom. Jack and Liam geared up in the equipment bay, examining the tools and gadgets available, each piece more alien than the last. The atmosphere was tense. Every participant was sizing up their competition while trying to guess which tools would be most useful. "Any idea what half of this stuff does?" Liam whispered, picking up a device that looked suspiciously like a cross between a compass and a grenade. "Not a clue," Jack muttered, attaching a similar gadget to his belt. "But I bet it's useful, or dangerous, maybe both." The two men finished gearing up and moved towards the transport bay, where small pods awaited to drop each participant at their starting point. The pods were sleek, designed for rapid descent and minimal detection. As they strapped themselves in, Jack glanced over at Liam. "Ready for this?" he asked, his voice betraying a hint of excitement beneath the stoic exterior. "As I'll ever be," Liam replied, giving a wry smile. "See you on the ground, Mason." The pods sealed shut, and the descent began. The sensation was stomach-churning as they plummeted toward the planet's surface. Jack's pod landed in a dense forest, the canopy thick with alien foliage that blocked most of the sunlight. He released his harness and stepped out, scanning the environment. His earpiece crackled to life. Participant 47A, you are in the Phaeton Forest. Your beacon is due north, 20 kilometers. Beware of the flora and fauna. Not all are friendly. Jack nodded to himself and started northward, his military training kicking in. He moved silently, avoiding the larger paths that could be easily monitored or booby-trapped. His senses were on high alert, taking in every sound, every movement in the underbrush. Meanwhile, Liam's pod dropped him near a series of rocky outcroppings. His landscape was vastly different, harsh and barren, with steep cliffs and little vegetation. He checked his own device, which beeped softly, directing him towards his beacon in the northeast. As both men progressed, they encountered their first set of challenges. Jack had to navigate through a patch of plants that emitted a toxic gas when disturbed. Using a piece of cloth over his mouth and nose, he carefully made his way around the hazardous area, noting down the plant's characteristics in his device for future reference. Liam, on the other hand, faced a physical challenge. He reached a ravine that needed crossing, and the only way over was a narrow, crumbling, natural bridge. Taking a deep breath, he tested his weight on the structure, then slowly and carefully worked his way across, avoiding looking down at the dizzying drop below. Hours passed, and both men made steady progress. They had to rely on their training and instincts, as the landscape provided new challenges at every turn. Jack had a close call with a predatory creature that resembled a cross between a wolf and a snake, managing to scare it off with a series of loud, aggressive noises. Liam wasn't without his own encounters. A sudden sandstorm forced him to find shelter under an overhang, waiting out the blinding, abrasive winds. It was during these moments of forced pause that he appreciated the harsh beauty of the alien planet. As the first day drew to a close, Jack and Liam found temporary shelters, Jack up a sturdy tree, and Liam in a cave. Their devices indicated that they were both on course towards the beacon, albeit slowly. That night, as they rested, each man reflected on the day's trials. The challenges were tough, but they were tougher. Both felt a surge of pride in their adaptability and grit, qualities that, they hoped, would see them through to the end of this extreme survival course. As dawn broke, Jack and Liam each resumed their journey toward the central beacon. Despite the physical distance between them, their shared purpose forged a tacit bond that sustained their spirits. Jack moved cautiously through the dense undergrowth of the forest, his senses tuned to the slightest rustle or snap. Suddenly he froze. Ahead, a trio of Crythians, reptilian creatures known for their stealth and agility, blocked his path. They communicated in a series of hisses and clicks, eyeing him suspiciously. "Human," the leader hissed, its translator barely keeping up with its sibilant speech. "You tread on Crythian territory." Jack raised his hands, showing no weapons. "Just passing through on my way to the beacon. No interest in your territory." The Crythians conferred among themselves before one stepped forward, extending a clawed hand. "We let you pass, human. In return, share your water." Reluctantly, Jack handed over his extra water pouch. The Crythians nodded, stepping aside to let him pass. As he moved on, Jack realized that even in this competition, moments of mutual benefit were possible. Meanwhile, Liam encountered his own alliance opportunity. As he navigated the rocky terrain, he heard a cry of distress. Following the sound, he found an Urzak, a bulky, bear-like creature, caught in a trap. Its leg was pinned under a heavy net of metal wires. The Urzak growled warily as Liam approached. "Help!" it grunted, the translator around its neck flashing with each word. Liam examined the trap, then looked into the Urzak's pain-filled eyes. "I'm going to help you," he declared, and set to work. After several tense minutes, he managed to release the mechanism, freeing the Urzak. "Thank you, human," the Urzak said, standing shakily. "Grugak owes you." Liam nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie. "Maybe we'll meet at the beacon, Grugak." As both Jack and Liam continued their journey, they faced more challenges. Jack had to cross a river that surged with powerful currents, Using vines and large fallen branches, he fashioned a makeshift raft. The crossing was precarious, but he made it across with his makeshift raft bobbing wildly, but holding together. Liam's path led him into a narrow canyon where the winds howled menacingly, funneling through the tight space with ferocious intensity. Using his jacket and some rope, he created a makeshift windbreak, allowing him to rest and plan his next move. By the end of the second day, both men had significantly closed the distance to the beacon. Their respective encounters had taught them the value of unexpected alliances, no matter how temporary. As they set up camp for the night, Jack in a hollowed-out tree and Liam under a rock overhang, they reflected on the day. Jack thought about the Crithians. Their willingness to negotiate, even in a competitive environment, was a lesson in diplomacy. Meanwhile, Liam remembered Grugak's gratitude, realizing that even small acts of kindness could forge bonds in the most unlikely circumstances. As they drifted off to sleep, both men understood that the challenges ahead might be daunting, but the alliances they formed could be the key to survival in this extreme classroom. Their journey was not just about reaching the beacon, it was about navigating the complexities of interstellar interactions, where every encounter could mean the difference between progress and peril. As night descended over the alien planet, the environment transformed into a realm of heightened dangers. Jack Mason, tucked away in his makeshift shelter within a hollowed-out tree, stayed alert, his eyes scanning the shadowy forest for any sign of movement. The night was alive with strange calls and the rustling of nocturnal creatures. Jack's hand rested on the hilt of a survival knife, a tool that had become his constant companion. The tranquility of the forest was deceptive. Every rustle could signal a predator. Suddenly, a low growl resonated through the air, too close for comfort. Peering through the foliage, Jack spotted a pair of luminescent eyes staring back at him. The creature, a massive feline with scales instead of fur, crouched, its muscles taut, ready to pounce. Using his training, Jack remained motionless, blending as much as possible into his environment. The standoff lasted minutes that felt like hours until Jack slowly reached for a gadget he had acquired from the equipment bay, a high-frequency emitter designed to disorient aggressive fauna. He activated the device, and the creature staggered, confused by the sudden assault on its senses, then fled into the darkness. Meanwhile, Liam Gray faced his own nocturnal challenges. His shelter under a rock overhang offered some protection from the elements, but the open terrain was a different story. As he prepared for a cold night, a sudden sharp clicking sound echoed around him. Turning swiftly, Liam spotted a group of small, insect-like creatures advancing towards him. Each creature was the size of a small dog, with too many legs and eyes that glowed eerily in the moonlight. Recalling Jack's advice on using the environment to his advantage, Liam quickly grabbed a handful of sand, mixing it with a chemical from his survival kit that reacted violently when exposed to air. He threw the concoction towards the advancing swarm. The resulting smoke and flare startled the creatures, causing them to scatter in confusion, buying Liam enough time to fortify his position and ensure no other threats could approach unseen. The night continued with both men on high alert. Jack's encounter had left him wary of any further surprises, while Liam's had reminded him of the importance of being prepared for anything. Both men spent the hours reinforcing their shelters and reflecting on the relentless nature of their environment. As dawn approached, bringing with it the first light of day, Jack and Liam emerged from their respective shelters, each feeling a mix of relief and fatigue. The night had tested their resolve and survival skills, but it had also hardened their determination. With the new day came a renewed focus on their primary objective, reaching the beacon. The night's events had taught them vital lessons about the predators of this alien world, lessons that would be essential for the challenges to come. As they resumed their journeys, each with a clearer understanding of the planet's dangers, they also realized that surviving this extreme survival course would require more than just physical endurance and tactical skills. It would require an unyielding will to overcome whatever threats lay ahead in the darkness. The sun rose over the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, as Jack and Liam continued their respective treks toward the beacon. As they progressed, the terrain and challenges became increasingly complex and dangerous, signifying the next phase of the survival course, the Gauntlet. Jack approached a vast clearing surrounded by towering rock formations. At the center, a series of mechanical structures loomed, each emitting a low, ominous hum. His device pinged with a new message. Participant 47A, welcome to the Gauntlet. Navigate through to continue towards the beacon. Caution advised. Surveying the area, Jack noticed sensors and cameras mounted on the structures, clearly designed to monitor and possibly interact with him. He took a deep breath and stepped forward, his eyes scanning for any signs of movement or mechanical triggers. As he moved, the first obstacle activated. A series of laser grids shot across the clearing, moving in complex patterns. Jack paused, observing the sequence. Timing his movements, he sprinted, ducked, and rolled, narrowly avoiding the lasers. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he reached the other side, his heart pounding from the exertion and adrenaline. Meanwhile, Liam faced a different part of the Gauntlet. His section consisted of a narrow canyon filled with various traps. As he entered, the walls suddenly shifted, closing in to form a tighter space. Spikes protruded from one wall, pushing him towards the opposite side, which threatened to crush him with its sheer mass. Using a small explosive device, Liam managed to lodge it into a crack in the moving wall, causing a small but effective explosion that halted its advance temporarily. Breathing heavily, he squeezed through the narrowing passage, his uniform snagging on metal edges. Every step was a calculated risk, but his determination saw him through to the wider area beyond the canyon. Both Jack and Liam faced further trials as they progressed. Automated turrets, hidden pits filled with synthetic quicksand, and holographic enemies that required quick thinking and quicker reflexes. Each challenge was designed to test not just their physical capabilities, but their problem-solving skills under pressure. Jack encountered a river crossing where the water was artificially fast-flowing and filled with robotic predators. Using his survival rope, he created a makeshift zip line from one bank to the other, narrowly avoiding the snapping jaws of the mechanical creatures below. At the same time, Liam tackled a simulated toxic gas leak in a dense forest segment of the Gauntlet. He quickly fashioned a respirator using filters from his gear and a hollow reed, allowing him to breathe safely as he navigated through the noxious fumes, using his jacket to wave away pockets of gas. As the sun reached its zenith, both men emerged from their respective sections of the Gauntlet, battered but unbeaten. They had each faced down the mechanical monstrosities and environmental hazards that sought to end their journey prematurely. Taking a moment to rest and assess their condition, they repaired their gear, treated minor injuries with their medical kits, and prepared mentally for the final push towards the beacon. The Gauntlet had been a brutal reminder of the stakes involved in this course, but it had also galvanized their resolve. With renewed determination, Jack and Liam set off once more, knowing that each step took them closer to their goal and to proving their mettle in the most extreme survival classroom they had ever faced. As Jack and Liam continued their trek towards the beacon, each step felt heavier than the last. Their bodies were sore, their gear was battered, and the alien landscape seemed to grow more inhospitable with each passing mile. Yet, with each challenge they overcame, their resolve grew stronger, and a new sense of purpose began to crystallize. Jack, navigating a series of steep inclines, paused at the crest of a hill to survey the terrain ahead. Below him, the beacon glowed faintly in the distance, a tantalizing promise of the endgame. But as he scanned the surroundings with his binoculars, he spotted something unexpected. A group of alien instructors congregated around a large holographic display. Curious and cautious, he edged closer, using the terrain for cover. Meanwhile, Liam had stumbled upon a series of abandoned structures, remnants of a previous iteration of the survival course. As he explored one of the buildings, he discovered a trove of discarded equipment and, more importantly, a series of old data pads containing logs and observations from past courses. Skimming through the information, Liam uncovered hints about the true purpose of the survival training. Not just to test the participants, but to scout for potential leaders and strategists for intergalactic missions. The winning species would gain not just honor, but significant political leverage and access to advanced technologies. Back on the hill, Jack overheard fragments of conversation from the instructors. They spoke of alliances, resource allocations, and the strategic importance of Earth's unpredictable but highly adaptable human representatives. Realizing the broader implications of his participation, Jack felt a surge of strategic insight. This wasn't just a survival challenge. It was a test of potential human influence in the galactic community. Armed with this new understanding, Jack and Liam independently decided to shift their strategies. Jack became more cautious, aware that his actions might be scrutinized for leadership qualities. He began to take a more calculated approach, conserving resources and planning his route to maximize efficiency and safety. Liam, meanwhile, used his newly acquired knowledge to anticipate the challenges ahead. He rigged a series of traps and diversions to deter potential threats, not just from the environment, but from other participants who might view him as a rival. His engineering background gave him an edge, allowing him to create sophisticated solutions to complex problems. As the sun began to set, both men reached a critical juncture. A vast, barren wasteland lay between them and the beacon, known as the final stretch. It was a notorious part of the course, designed to test the very limits of a participant's endurance and wit. Jack and Liam, each in their own way, prepared for this last leg of their journey. They double-checked their equipment, mapped out their paths using the terrain and their new strategic insights, and steeled themselves for whatever lay ahead. That night, under the stars of an alien world, they rested fitfully, knowing that the next day would bring the culmination of their trials. They were no longer just survivors fighting to reach a beacon. They were potential leaders, each representing humanity's capabilities and resolve. Tomorrow, they would not just walk. They would march towards their destiny, ready to claim their place in the cosmic hierarchy. The dawn of the final day broke with a sky painted in streaks of crimson and gold, signaling the commencement of the last and most grueling leg of the survival course. As Jack and Liam prepared for their final push toward the beacon, the air around them crackled with the tension of impending trials. Jack set out at first light, his path leading directly into the heart of a tempestuous storm brewing on the horizon. He had learned from his previous encounters and the overheard conversations of the instructors that adaptability would be his greatest asset. As he approached the storm, he adjusted the settings on his survival gear to counteract the fierce winds and torrential rains. Using a combination of salvaged materials and technology from his pack, he fashioned a makeshift shield and anchored his boots to withstand gusts that threatened to sweep him off his feet. Simultaneously, Liam navigated a landscape that had transformed overnight. The ground, previously firm and stable, now shifted unpredictably with geothermal activity. Vents of steam and sudden eruptions of ash painted a hellish scene. Drawing on the information gleaned from the old data pads, Liam anticipated this environmental hostility and prepared accordingly. He deployed a thermal cloak to shield himself from the intense heat and crafted a respirator from spare filters to cleanse the air of toxic particles. Both men, though miles apart, faced these elemental adversities with a hardened resolve and a clear strategy. Jack maneuvered through the storm, using landmarks he had memorized from his map to stay on course. Each step was a battle against the wind, but he moved with a relentless determination, his eyes fixed on the faint glow of the beacon that served as his North Star. Liam's journey through the volcanic fields tested his engineering skills to their limits. He constructed a series of makeshift bridges over rivers of molten lava, using debris and heat-resistant materials found along the path. His meticulous planning and creative problem-solving allowed him to traverse areas that would have been impassable otherwise. As the day progressed, the storm around Jack intensified, but so did his resourcefulness. At one point, when a flooded river blocked his path, he used a high-density foam capsule from his kit to create a temporary raft. The raft bobbed precariously on the turbulent waters, but it carried him safely to the other side. Meanwhile, Liam faced a daunting obstacle in the form of a massive ash cloud that descended without warning, reducing visibility to near zero. Recalling a trick from the data pads, he used a sonic emitter to create a path through the cloud, the vibrations causing the ash to temporarily clump and settle, clearing a narrow pathway. By late afternoon, both men, having mastered the elements thrown against them, converged on the final stretch to the beacon. They were battered but unbroken, their faces etched with the trials they had endured. The beacon stood on a raised platform in the center of a clear field, its light steady and inviting. As they approached, each from a different direction, they could see the silhouette of the other against the backdrop of their conquered landscapes. No words were needed as they reached the platform. Their nods were mutual acknowledgments of respect and solidarity. Together, they ascended the steps to the beacon, activating it in unison. The beacon burst into a blaze of light, a signal of their success. They had not only survived, they had thrived, using their wits, courage, and sheer human tenacity to overcome every challenge set before them. As the course ended, Jack and Liam looked out over the terrain they had conquered, a testament to their survival and strategic acumen. They had proven themselves not just as survivors, but as masters of adaptation and innovation, ready to take their place among the stars. The beacon's glow filled the clearing with a brilliant light, marking the end of the survival course. Jack Mason and Liam Gray stood side by side, their faces weathered but resolute. The trials of the past days had pushed them to their limits, and as they stood at the beacon, they felt the weight of their accomplishments settle around them. The arena that had once buzzed with the sounds of various alien creatures was now silent, expectant. From the tree line, the alien instructors emerged, their expressions unreadable. The lead instructor, a tall and slender figure with iridescent skin, approached Jack and Liam. "You have reached the conclusion of Extreme Survival Classroom 101, the instructor announced, his voice amplified so all could hear. "Your performance has been monitored, analyzed, and above all, respected." Jack and Liam exchanged glances, a mutual understanding passing between them. They had started as strangers, but had ended as comrades, united by a shared ordeal. As per the rules of the course, only those reaching the beacon in the prescribed time are eligible for graduation, the instructor continued. His gaze lingered on both humans, a flicker of what might have been respect crossing his features. "Both of you have not only reached the beacon, but have also demonstrated exceptional skill and resilience. You are hereby declared graduates of this course." Around them, the other participants, those few who had managed to complete the course, clapped, a few nodding in acknowledgement of the humans' unexpected success. The instructor handed Jack and Liam a small metallic insignia, the emblem of the survival course. "This insignia marks you as Masters of Survival. It will grant you access to advanced training and opportunities within the Galactic Coalition." Jack pinned the insignia onto his chest, feeling its weight as more than just metal. It was a testament to human capability and spirit. Liam, ever the pragmatist, was already thinking ahead. "What kind of opportunities?" he inquired, his mind racing through potential missions and alliances. "Opportunities that will make use of your unique skills and perspectives," the instructor replied cryptically. "The galaxy is vast, and the challenges we face require the best of all worlds, your Earth included." As the ceremony concluded, Jack and Liam walked away from the beacon, their steps lighter despite the fatigue that clung to their bones. They had survived the harshest conditions an alien planet could throw at them, and had emerged not just unscathed, but victorious. On their walk back to the debriefing area, they discussed their future plans. "Think you'll take up on those opportunities?" Jack asked, casting a side glance at Liam. "Without a doubt," Liam responded with a grin. "After all, someone has to keep an eye on you. Make sure you don't get into too much trouble." Jack laughed, the sound mingling with the winds that swept over the clearing. "Likewise, Gray, likewise." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, the two men looked back one last time at the beacon. It was more than a navigation device now. It was a symbol of their endurance, skill, and the unexpected friendships forged in the heat of competition. Graduation day marked the end of one journey and the beginning of another. For Jack and Liam, the future was as bright as the beacon they'd left behind, filled with possibilities and the promise of new adventures among the stars.